Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, working on the Sweetheart Roadster, trying to get this engine in place so that it bolts in. So we got the trans mount made last time. Showed you guys how I did that, and got it probably 80 or 90% of the way there. It's just some finish work that needs to be done, and sanding a little more, and things like that. So I need to move forward, get on with figuring out the front engine mount situation. So I initially had made this plate here to the front. It was going to be like a hearse style front mount. But like a lot of stuff I do, I shoot from the hip and stare at it for a week or so, and then you kind of figure out what you like. So looking at it, I just didn't really, the hearse plates, just even if you make a fancy elaborate mount, they still just kind of look clunky and just, I don't know, it just doesn't look what I want. So I just changed my mind. It worked really well for what I needed it for getting the engine kind of sitting on the frame and centered and all that stuff, the angle right. So that was great. So I have it all tack welded in place. So what that allows me to do is work on making engine mounts off of the tabs in the front half of the engine where the original engine mounts would have been on the Cadillac engine. And I'm going to make them together with some traditional flathead style biscuit mounts. So I spent way more time than I'd like to admit dreaming up and drawing ideas for it, and I got this piece here that I made. It's kind of like a little hoop section that is going to be the main portion of the engine mount, and then I'm going to fill it in the center here. So I saved you guys the time of me tracing and cutting and playing with arts and crafts for a couple hours, and I got a piece I like. I think I know what direction I want to go in now. So I traced this out on some plate, some 1/8" plate. I'm going to use the plasma to just rough cut those out, and then I can sand them, blend them, and drill some holes, get them bolted in place, and start figuring out what I'm going to do to fill in the gaps there. So yeah, let's get started with the plasma. So we got the pieces cut. I got one rough cut here out with the plasma, and I got one that I sanded down that's pretty good. So what I want to do is bend this about on the center line here, and we want it to kind of wrap around the stock flathead V8 biscuit mount. So I found a piece of stock that was just a little bit bigger than the biscuit mount. So we will clamp this in the vise and then roll it around it, and should work pretty well, and then we can start filling in the blanks. So back to work on the front motor mount here, and I actually, after looking at the Ford biscuit mounts that I had, they were a little large in diameter versus the shape of the mount, how I had to roll around and bolt up. The Ford biscuit mounts were just a little big in diameter, so I started searching around online to find a suitable mount that was smaller in diameter but was a hard enough material to support the weight of the engine. So what I found is I think it's 55 to 57 55 to 57 Chevys, trucks and cars. They got V8s in them, small blocks in them, the early small blocks. They used a real simple, their version of a biscuit mount that's smaller in diameter. It's 2 pieces. They're really cheap. Don't let yourself get ripped off on eBay or some of the Chevy sites. I did some searching, and actually my local Napa had these, and I think the lower, smaller mount was like 80 cents a piece, and I think the top ones were like $2 or $3 a piece. And my Napa, I called it, I don't know, 9, 10 a.m. They had them by 1 in the afternoon, same day. Grabbed them, saved myself some money, and also I had them right away, and they were, you know, supporting a local auto parts store. So what I got here is these 2 mounts. So what they're going to do is they're going to sit, one's going to sit on top, one's going to go from underneath, and sandwich between the metal tab that's going to hang off of the frame. So what I want to do, since we made that little hoop section you saw, is I want to get a sleeve that's going to be threaded, so you can thread the bolt up from underneath like this, and it's going to go into a hidden sleeve that's going to be welded into that plate that we've already made. So I had some bushings laying around from some kind of other project, and they actually seem to work pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bushing. I have a nut here that I can take, and it just about fits in here. I can tap it into this this bushing, and then I can TIG weld the nut into the bushing. That'll hold it in place, and then I'm going to actually TIG weld this round, big round washer here, this body washer, on top of the whole mess, and that's going to give me a nice solid foundation like so. It's going to sit on top of the rubber mount. I have washers also on either side of these rubber mounts so that they don't crush as much. These are just temporary. I'm probably going to get a larger one for this area here, but this large washer here will spread the load out and should work pretty well. So that's the idea, at least for now. As I usually say, I'm usually winging it during these videos, just figuring it out as I go, just like everybody was doing when building hot rods since the beginning of time. So I'm going to figure it out along the way. We should have something pretty cool when we're done. So I'm going to get welding. Alright, so now we got the engine side of the engine mount bracket done, and that's bolted on. I'm pretty happy with it. The next thing I need to do is make the actual engine mount bracket for the frame side that's going to weld on for using a round biscuit style mount. Doesn't matter if you're using a Ford or a Chevy. They're all basically the same for this universal style mount. You can buy these at any of the universal parts suppliers, and they're fine. I mean, you can buy them; they're pretty cheap. But if you're building a lot of cars, or you're a scavenger like me, it's good to get some box tubing, and you can make basically the same exact thing for next to no money. So when I was building the Pagoda City Coupe, I built the frame out of 2x3 box tubing, and I had some leftovers, and I found when I was making that the 2x3 was actually perfect for making the mounts for the biscuit mount on the frame, the bracket on the frame. So I used that, worked really well. I saved some extra that I have left over, and just for that reason. So 2x3 box tubing is really good. Either 3/16 quarter wall. If you're doing something that's pretty heavy, I wouldn't go any thinner than that, like a 3/16 wall. But so I have a piece right here. I measured off of my frame. I have some old bolt-on style engine mounts to put another engine in a 32 Ford that I had kicking around. I use them just for mock-up and to get measurements. So I measured off of the frame. It's about 2 inches. I'm sorry, 2.5 inches that the bracket needs to come off of the frame. So that's what I'm going to draw on here. I'll create a little radius on the bottom where it's going to flow up into itself, and then we'll punch a hole in the center, and we can tack weld it to the frame. Pretty simple, really cheap. So 3x2 box tubing, if you have like a scrap metal supplier like I do, just go in there, get a couple pieces of that, and you'll have engine mounts for tons of custom cars or hot rods using the biscuit mounts. Alright guys, so I got the last mount made, got this tab tacked into the frame, and then also the boxing plates on the inside of the frame, so it's pretty sturdy. Has a bolt that goes from the underneath, small mount on the underside of the tab on the frame, larger mount goes on the top, and then I have this mount threaded, so everything's kind of hit. I'm pretty happy with how it goes. All goes together and looks. And we will be removing this front temporary plate once I get the driver's side done. Should go a little quicker on the driver's side because I made all my patterns and kept them from doing this mount, so I should be able to quickly cut everything out, sand it into shape, and get it put together a lot quicker than this one. So that's all I have for this time. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, we do videos Tuesday or Friday. Make sure you share or subscribe if you like what you're watching. Thanks. Catch you later.